Remember, in the course of discussing movies, the host will spoil plots. You've been warned. Listen to their screams. Greetings, ghouls and creeps, and welcome to Listen to Their Screams, a horror podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dave. I'm joined as always by the other host, Ike. Ike, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. I'm a little hungry. I'm a little hungry for some meat, maybe some human meat.
Some long pig. That's what
That's
they call
right.
you, long pig. Yeah, because today's topic of discussion overall is pretty much cannibalism. We are going to be reviewing the movie Cannibal Cabin, which is available now on video on demand as the main event today. So yeah, we're going to be talking cannibals. So good times, good stuff. I mean, I'd have to be super damn hungry to dive into that. And you hear all these people that always say, "Oh, I'd never do that. I'd never do that." I'm like, man, I don't know. If you're in, now I'm not saying how some of these people do, for pleasure or just because they like it. But if you are in a do or die situation and things are grim, man, people, when you're hungry, your body you'll do weird stuff.
Oh
And
yeah,
I think some people that stand so adamantly against it would do it.
I agree. I agree.
And I'm not saying that he would go out and kill somebody for it, but I mean, come on. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I come off as a weird and whatever else, saying that, but I mean, if there's nothing to eat, like what was the movie Alive or whatever, where you're like everything's frozen, there's not shit to eat, and you got dead other passengers. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and honestly, this obviously it's a TV show because we're going to do a top three here in a little bit about cannibal movies, but something I thought about including in my top three was the show Yellow Jackets, which has aspects of cannibalism. And the concept of Yellow Jackets is that a plane crashes, and it kind of reminds me of like the soccer team that crashed in the Alps. Is that right? The Swiss
Yeah,
Alps or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I mean, that's how they had to resort to cannibalism. So it's like, sometimes, not to say that cannibalism is justified, but there are justifiable reasons for cannibalism. Not always, but sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, and I love Supernatural. There's a couple episodes there where they hint at it. Mostly it's monsters eating. But Monica and I were talking, and do you recall there was an episode of Criminal Minds with Jamie Kennedy
Yeah.
as the villain, where he that was a kind of a wicked episode where he cooked the chili for all the people at the search party, and the entire all these people that were searching for missing victims were they were partaking of one of the victims and completely unaware. So that always, Jimmy Kennedy, it always gets me in these shows and movies, man. I like guys that play villains they don't seem cut from the villain mold. You know what I mean? Like when
Right.
Robin Williams in 1 Hour Photo and different things like that, where they're these guys that are either, funny or good guys or whatever it might be. And when they flip the switch to play a villain, there's this added creepiness to it because you know who they are. It adds a dimension to me. So
Absolutely.
but besides that, before we get to the review, we got a lot of things to do. We will send out a special thank you to our wives, Kayla and Monica, for all their help and support and research and et cetera, with the podcast. But Ike, before we dive into our weekly segment, so what'd you do this week? Did you watch anything or anything of note?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually nothing from this week. I'll be honest with you. I have nothing from this week, but I did have a couple things from last week that I forgot to mention that I felt like are worth mentioning. First and foremost, I have finished Yellow Jackets, the second season of Yellow Jackets. Super amazing show. If you have not seen the show yet, check it out. There's 2 seasons. It's on Paramount, I believe. Otherwise, I haven't really watched anything. Okay. But last time, and I completely forgot to mention this during the podcast, the weekend before last, I went to a paranormal circus.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I completely forgot to mention it. I was telling Dave all about it. I had him, send him the link and all that good jazz. And I was kind of talking to him about it, sent him a couple pictures, and Dave's like, "Hey, make sure you mention that on the podcast." And what did I not do? Take pictures,
Didn't
mention it
mention
on
on the
the.
podcast.
Oh man. So yeah, so basically the circus, it was called Paranormal Cirque 3. It's the third one they've done. Now it's basically a traveling circus. It's based out of Sarasota, Florida, I think. But basically they go across the country, different places. They're going to be in Indiana, North Carolina. I think they go to California too, I believe. Maybe not. But they're on Facebook. Basically, it's just like a paranormal circus. It's like a circus with, the classic circus acts. You got your trapeze, you have, stunts, you have all kinds of cool stuff like that. Knife throwing. They play with whips and stuff like that. But it also has a comedic aspect. It is a rated R show, which I thought was kind of weird for like a circus to be rated R. But then like they started doing stuff, and I'm like, okay, I can see why this is rated R. Like at one point, like a guy whipped out a dildo, like stupid humor like that. Um, but yeah, it was good stuff. It was funny. It was a little spooky. They included like there's like a little bit with Leatherface that was pretty cool. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was really neat. It was unique because I never heard of this before, and apparently this is like the third like time they had done this. But yeah, they do it every year, I guess, and they come up with new acts every year. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always neat when you find stuff like, especially when it's not in the fall, right? You find all kinds of things in the fall, right?
Right.
Haunted attractions, different things. But yeah, when something comes up and it's not in season, it's always fun. I'm always on the lookout for something to do, or just even a place to see.
Right.
Supposed haunted houses, true haunted houses, et cetera, et cetera. So, um, well, let's see. What did I watch? I did watch a few things. The primary one is that I dove in and I completed the In Search of Darkness 80s horror documentary. And
Wow.
this is a big thing on Twitter, and I've always wanted to watch this. And always thought, at some point I will bite the bullet and I will either buy the downloads or buy the Blu-ray and watch them. But hadn't done it yet. Well, then one day I was perusing through Shudder, and lo and behold, all three parts are on Shudder. So I was so excited, and I watched them. And we're talking like 16 hours of documentary total with the three. These things are monstrous, and they hit on, I mean, virtually every horror movie from the 80s, and they have everybody in these documentaries. I'm talking about them, right? And there's just little segments on each one, and it is so good. It is so good because it sparks movies you forgot about. It's so good because it piques your interest on movies you didn't even know about. I mean, it talks about genres. It talks about, there's little segments on specific, some of the prominent specific actors and directors and things. So good. I cannot recommend it enough for people to go watch it. Again, it's on AMC Plus and Shudder. You have to, unless you've got a big chunk of time free, you have to watch it in kind of segments. I will say the AMC Plus app is not user friendly. It's horrible that if you walk away from something, sometimes you go back and it does not hold your place for continue watching. Sometimes such a pain. But it did, spawn. They have checklists out there of all the movies they mentioned, and it's like, this is my goal now, I'm going to go through and I'm going to check off the ones that I've seen multiple times that I don't feel like I need to rewatch immediately. But then I'm going to go through and try to anything that I have not seen or haven't seen in a while or not familiar with or forgotten. I'm going to watch them, and
Right.
over time. But I'm going to use this to spawn things to watch. And I'm all about 80s horror, especially 80s slashers, even the cheesy fun ones and everything else. But besides that, well, spitting out that I watched Hotel Hell because of this, and that kind of parlays into our cannibalism because it's got a cannibalistic aspect to it. But then even before I watching this, I did watch a small film called House Harker, and they're House Harker. They're on Twitter, and I think it's just at House Harker, and they're a supporter of us. Like they listen to the show, they like the show, and and they're all the times they're interacting with us on Twitter, on social media. They're all the time sharing our stuff. And I thought, well, you know what? In good faith, I'm gonna return the favor, and I'm going to go watch. I'm going to watch their movie. And you know what? It was a fun movie. it's no offense, but it's clearly kind of low budget, but
Right.
it's very comedic, but it is also very bloody, and but it's got vampires in it and stuff, and it's a fun watch. It's entertaining, and I highly advise anybody that just wants to for an hour and a half just to watch a kind of a light horror comedy with a oogles of blood in it. Um, to go give it a shot. It's fun, and again, you can follow them on Twitter, and we'll give them a shout out. They're supporters of the show. Like I said, they listen, they share our stuff, they've bought a shirt, they've done all kinds of things. They enjoy our show. So I thought I'll return the favor and I'll give it a watch. So, and I highly recommend that. You ought to go out and watch it too. And
I will have to do that.
yeah, so that's it. That's what I watched. Again, the In Search of Darkness took up 16 hours of my time. Which sounds monumental, but man, it flies by. It is so fun to watch. It is so fun. But anyway, so that takes care of kind of takes care of the week and what we watched and all the housekeeping items. So let's get right into our segment for this week. Top 3. And in this week, we're sticking with our theme of cannibal movies, and we are going to discuss our top 3 favorite cannibal movies. And when we talked about doing this, it was kind of time to do top 3, and you suggested we do it, on cannibal movies because we, really dove into it. There's a good chance, who knows when we'll have this topic up again.
Right.
A couple jumped right to mind. Lots jumped to mind, but a couple jumped to mind that they're good. They're contenders for me. But then I found out that as I was kind of perusing lists and going over movie titles, there's a lot of cannibal movies that I like and are okay, but there's not this exorbitant amount that I think are spectacular and that I think are really favorites of mine. So, you got I've got my top 3, which I enjoy these movies, and I think there's a drop down to just movies that are fun and that I like, but I wouldn't put them on any of my favorite lists of anything necessarily.
Right.
That's not knocking them or anything, but it's just the way it is. So, Ike, are you ready to dive in?
I think I am.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and start us out? What is your number 3 favorite cannibal movie?
Absolutely. So to kind of preface this real quick, because Dave said something that made me think of this. So, like he said, some of these are not like these. I think I'm the opposite spectrum, because a couple of these are movies that I've put on other lists. So these are my top 3, but these are movies that have been on other lists. Weirdly enough, I realize. So cannibal movie, my number 3 is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Oh. Obviously, the whole portrayal of Texas Chainsaw is that Leatherface and family, they are cannibals. They eat people. They put them in chili. That's how they sustain themselves. Pretty much every incarnation of Leatherface is cannibals. So I had to include that one. There are a lot of other ones that I could have put. But I just felt to myself, this is probably my favorite horror movies of all time, favorite slasher movies, favorite grindhouse movies, whatever. But it's also a cannibal movie at the end of the day, and I think it deserves a spot on my list for sure.
Yeah, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and it is on my list, so I won't dive into it too much right now. But it is not my number 3. My number 3 favorite cannibal movie is Wrong Turn from 2003, the first one, the original one. I really like this movie. I think it's got some good characters, some good killers, or villains, or whatever you want to call them, or cannibals, or whatever you want to call them. I think it's a fun movie during a time when horror was in the early 2000s. It was kind of a weird state for me, right? I mean, there was some decent movies, but there wasn't there was all these standout movies. I mean, we had the Scream series that's been going on, since during this time, but this one, to me, I think Wrong Turn from that time period kind of stands out to me. And it obviously has the cannibalistic aspect. Ike, so what do you think of Wrong Turn?
Absolutely. Like you said, the 2000s was a hodgepodge of shitty movies and not so good movies, but there were a few things that stick out. Wrong Turn is one of the few that I feel like really stick out. Obviously, Wrong Turn is one of those series that eventually became about just pumping out sequels to make money. or to attempt to make money, I should say. A lot of them were direct to DVD, direct to video, bullshit. But the original Wrong Turn is a very, in my opinion, very original concept. And, I really enjoyed the original Wrong Turn. I haven't watched it in a while, if I'm going to be honest, but I do remember that it's one of those movies that you watch and you're like, wow, I was not expecting it to go that route, because you don't expect the cannibalism. But one of my favorite scenes from that movie is homeboy who's just sitting there at that gas station drinking straight out of the bottle of Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel that. Bought a bunch of Mexican food and I just got to start chugging Pepto. So I was like, that's relatable.
Yeah, we've all been there. So, all right, let's move on. Ike, what is your number 2 favorite cannibal movie?
Absolutely. And this has been in another list as well. My number 2 favorite cannibal movie is The Green Inferno. This is an Eli Roth movie from like 2016, I believe, 2014 maybe. In any case, it is, it's a movie. It's about people. I think they're humanitarians of some sort. They're on a plane going to some, distant remote area, and their plane crashes over, some jungle. And when they crash in the jungle, they come across a tribe of cannibals. Now, this is a real tribe of cannibals that Eli Roth filmed with. They are legitimately people who eat dead. They're dead. And now in the movie, they're a little more violent and aggressive. But it was a very interesting movie, very scary, very realistic. It was one of those movies that I watched, and I don't cringe a whole lot when it comes to brutality and gore. But this is one of those movies that you almost kind of thought that it was real. The Green Inferno didn't get a huge release either, so it's kind of a shame. But super good movie, scary, gory, cannibally, all that good jazz, and I think it's on Netflix.
Yeah, well, there you go. I like Green Inferno. I think I've only seen it the one time, and it was not long after it was out and everything. So it's been a while, but it didn't make my list, but it's definitely a good choice. And it's one of those that the name came up, and I thought, oh yeah, it could be. But it's just kind of one of those middle of the pack movies for me. And but it's fun. It's a fun watch. Which I guess is an odd thing to say about a cannibal movie, but okay. But my number 2 movie is, we said cannibal movie, so this is not what I would call a clear-cut horror movie, but it's more a kind of a criminal suspense movie, but it is such a masterpiece and is so well acted and has got an extraordinary cast. But from 1991, my number 2 favorite cannibal movie is Silence of the Lambs. Anthony Hopkins, oh my Lord, I just want to bow before him. He was so good in this movie. Jodie Foster was so good in this movie. Buffalo Bill's in this movie. But Hannibal Lecter, of course, is a very sophisticated cannibal, and he talks about eating the things with the fava beans and everything else. But he's not your atypical cannibal, right? Where you think of a savage person who's eating organs raw or just eating them straight from the body or this crazy. This is he is an educated, sophisticated, high class kind of guy who kills people and eats them. And but the movie is so well done. I believe Ike. I believe you. I remember. Did I remember you saying that you have not seen Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah, I've not seen Silence of the Lambs. I know like stuff from it. Like obviously I know like the iconic quotes. I'll eat it with a side of fava beans, and the
lotion on
the back. Yeah, right. Or it gets the hose again, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like like I know that stuff, but no, I've not actually seen that movie start to finish. You actually told me to watch it, and I just never got around to it.
Yeah, you need to. It is again, it's creepy, it's suspenseful, it's definitely what I would call a thriller, which that obviously has horror aspects. But since we said cannibal movies, it's definitely got a cannibal in it. So that is it. That is my number 2 favorite cannibal movie. So we're on to our number 1s. Ike, what is your number 1 favorite cannibal movie? Which I believe you said when we brought up the list, you said right off the bat you knew what your number 1 was going to be.
Yep, absolutely. And this has been on another list as well, weirdly enough. But my number 1 favorite cannibal movie is Raw. When I think of cannibal movies, this is the first one that comes to mind. And kind of like what Dave said, you kind of mentioned how the Silence of the Lamb, it departs from the typical depiction of a cannibal, right? Most of the time when you see a cannibal, you see, the Sawyer family. You see cannibal tribes in the middle of nowhere with Cannibal Holocaust and Green Inferno, or you think of some inbred hillbillies in the backwoods of the Appalachian Mountains or whatever. You know what I mean? So you think of all these like sort of tropes and stereotypes when it comes to cannibals, but then you have the reverse of that, and I think the reverse of that it sort of falls into that trope of like it's so different that it makes it better almost. And that's why I feel like Silence of the Lambs is so great, because the character of Hannibal Lecter, I mean, not only is he portrayed by some of the best actors in this world, but also his character is inherently different from other people of that archetype. So with that in mind, Raw is a story about a woman who, again, completely throwing the archetype. Typically, the people who are, committing these acts of cannibalism, statistically in these horror movies are not women.
Yeah.
But also in Raw, she's an unintentional cannibal. She is a vegetarian. She's been grown up as a vegetarian, and she basically develops a taste for human meat because she starts eating normal meat, and there's something wrong with her that it drives her to eat human. And there's sort of like a little thing that kind of gets dropped towards the end of the movie that makes it even more impactful that I won't spoil. But it's basically it's a story about a person who unintentionally became a cannibal, and there's no going back basically. And
Yeah.
or that the road back is hard. And Raw is so good. If you've never seen it, watch it. It is a foreign film, so it's subtitled, but it's so good.
Yeah, it is a good film. And again, that was one that it was very strong contender to make my top three. But
Yeah.
for me, these three just kind of stood out as more enjoyable to me personally. But yeah, Raw is a very good movie, and I highly recommend that anybody watch that. And you made a good point. Like most movies with cannibals, they portray them where it's very easy to villainize them, right? To make them villains and say, oh, they're wrong, and look at them, look how they are. And the movies where it's not quite that, right? They're where you have a different breed, or someone who's just even to the point of being just normal, or even extraordinary a little bit. I think it adds a creepy factor, right? Because it's that whole what's the neighbor doing behind the closed doors kind of thing, which I've always found very kind of terrifying, right? Where you can know somebody and think you know them well, but what are they doing behind a closed door? And right when they're away from everybody, you don't know, right? I mean, you hear it all the time with serial killers and everything else that nobody you all the time. It's like I never would have suspected it. They were such a nice person. They were the model employee and all that. You hear it all the time, and that to me that is so creepy, and adds a whole nother level to it. So if people are keeping track and keeping score by what I said earlier, everybody should know that my number one favorite cannibal movie from 1974 is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I love this movie. This is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Probably one of my favorite movies of all time. So because of that, and because it's a cannibal movie, it just kind of by default fell into that number one slot. I enjoy the movie. I enjoy it every time I rewatch it. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's just so well done. I think it's, again, I say fun, but I know that's odd to say when you talk about a guy wearing a skin face and a chainsaw and they're eating people. I understand that, but it's such an enjoyable movie for me to watch, and it's one of my favorite movies to rewatch. So it is my number one favorite cannibal movie, and I did have three kind of honorable mentions. I didn't know if you had any that you wanted to throw out. Some other ones that I kind of like. There, of course, from 1980, there's Cannibal Holocaust, right? That one.
Mm-hmm.
While it's not the greatest movie of all time, man, it is. It's so creepy, and there's the cannibal side of it. That's weird enough, but the legit animal kills in it really freak me out. That part of that movie really bugs me. From 1980, the one I mentioned earlier that I just watched, Motel Hell, that's a fun movie that I advise people to watch. It's very cool, very fun, got a little bit of humor in it. And then from 1973, Soylent Green. It was a classic movie coming up on their 50th anniversary of that movie this year. And it's it's a kind of a different approach to it. Where it's not it's not out the norm, right? It's the norm that people are doing this. So I advise people to watch that. I know it's an older movie, but it is really, really good. So, Ike, did you have any more Cannibal movies you want to throw out there, or did you just have your top three?
No, actually, I do have. I have two that were almost in my top three. So I guess they're considered honorable mentions. So there were two other ones that I kind of thought about, but I was like, eh. So one of them is a movie called Fresh. Fresh is actually. Good. Oh, it's super good. 2022. Sebastian Stan. I love Sebastian Stan. He's so great. It's Bucky Barnes from the MCU, if you know. But super good, super great movie, newer-ish movie, and it really again follows sort of a very interesting trope of it's sort of like a Hannibal Lecter character-esque. And then this one was a little bit of a reach, but it still kind of is. It's a movie called Mother. So it has Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem as well as a bunch of other people in it. But this one's more of an art piece, if I'm going to be real with you. It's very artsy, and it is kind of a thriller, suspense, horror-esque movie. And the reason why it kind of falls into the cannibal movie-esque, vibe is that there is some cannibalism in the movie, but it's not a central part of the movie. So that's why I didn't really put it in my list. But I would put it up there. It's called Mother.
Never seen that. I hear the word mother, I always think of the Danzig song, Mother. I just always, forever. That's just what it'll be. So now that I got that song stuck in my head, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll have birthdays, anniversaries, and upcoming releases. So stick around. Make sure you subscribe to Listen to Their Screams on your favorite podcast platform. Also, make sure you look us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, and Slasher. All you have to do is look up Listen to Screams. That is Listen, the number 2 and Screams, and you can find us there. Also, make sure you go and buy yourself a Listen to Their Screams t-shirt. You can find all of our shirts at tinyurl.com/Screams Shirts.
And we are back with the news. Let's spread the news. I'm gonna start saying that every time now. It's just
every episode.
Every episode. I'm pretty sure I say it differently. As you give me the news, spread the news, something with the news.
You're just one step away from doing the old paper play. Extra.
Read all about it. All right, upcoming birthdays. You gotta love a good birthday. We got some good ones this week. June 22nd, 1958. The man himself, Bruce Campbell, from such movies such as The Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Evil Dead 3, Army of Darkness, was born. Obviously, Bruce Campbell is a legend. I love Bruce Campbell. He's one of the few people I feel like I really would like to meet, and it would not be a disappointing meeting.
Yeah, he's so cool. I feel like, what you see is what you get with him. So he's like one of those guys that was like, man, it would be so cool to sit down and have a beer with and just chat and just spend time with, because, I feel like it would just be so entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we also have June 24th, 1950, Nancy Allen from Dress to Kill, Carrie, and RoboCop. Obviously, Carrie is a iconic movie. Nancy Allen plays her role in there. I don't think I've seen Dress to Kill, but I have seen RoboCop, and I do like RoboCop.
Yeah. And on a side note, I didn't put it in here, but also born on June 24th, the same birthday as Nancy Allen is Peter Weller, also from RoboCop. They have a different year. I can't remember what he was born. He's a few years older, but I think it's kind of ironic to me that the two leads in RoboCop had the same birthday. So wild.
Love that. All right. And then a little bit later in the month, we have June 27th, 1999. I think it's the first 90s person we've had on this list, is Chandler Riggs from The Walking Dead. He plays Coral.
Get in the house, Carl.
Get in the house, Coral. Love Chandler Riggs. I have actually, me and Dave have both met Chandler Riggs when he was like a fetus, and we both have a picture with him.
Yeah, he was still on the show.
Yeah, he was still on the show. This is it was the Cincinnati Comic Expo, like in 2013, 14, 12 maybe.
he was a pup.
He was like 10 years ago. Oh man, looked like a very disturbing family portrait. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
But, gotta love Chandler Riggs. You want to say anything about Chandler Riggs before I move on?
No, I think you said it all there.
I think so. I think so. But all right, and then one last one. I'm sure this is one of Dave's faves.
It is one of my highlights. Love it.
June 28th, 1979, Felicia Day. From such films and shows of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Guild, Supernatural, so on and so forth. Felicia Day is also a pretty iconic YouTuber from the early days of YouTube. She was on I can't remember what the show was that was on YouTube that she had. Was that The Guild?
That was The Guild, yeah.
Cool. That's what I thought.
Guild is super creative and funny. It's about about this group that play an online kind of a World of Warcraft type game, and then things happen where they have to meet in real life, and it's great. It is so funny, and it really is. It was revolutionary for the time, right? I mean, people weren't doing this like she was, but yeah. Then she went on and she had I think she was one of the Slayers in Buffy that was in training late in the series. Yeah. And she's been to several other shows, but then of course I know her besides The Guild, I know her mostly as being Charlie in Supernatural, and super cool. She is spectacular. She's fun, a fun watch. She's a gamer, a tabletop gamer. She is very active on social media, and for all of us who are nerds and geeks and love comic books and movies and all these things, man, she is just one of us. She totally is. So I love her. She is great. She's a hero to me.
Absolutely, gotta love it. And I've heard that she's a really nice person, like in real life.
Yeah, I would suspect so.
But all right, so now we have a couple of movie anniversaries. Now these are also some pretty good movie anniversaries too. Yeah. I think June is just a good month.
Yeah, and the first one is not a horror movie, but there's no way I could not acknowledge this one.
That's what I was gonna say. How can you not? And also it is kind of spooky if you ask me. It was kind of a darker movie.
It's dark and creepy. It's got that Tim Burton stamp on it, of course, but
you got that right. And if you can't guess
favorites of all time.
I know me and Dave have had arguments over this movie and other movies in this genre, but from 1989, June 23rd, The Batman, Michael Keaton's Batman. And people argue about who's their Batman. For me, my Batman's Christian Bale. For Dave, it's Michael Keaton.
Yep, absolutely. So good. I love this movie. Could not even put a number on how many times I've watched this movie. I put it on. I watch it at least once a month. At least. That might be concerned. I love Batman and Batman Returns, both of them, but the first one, and there's just being alive at that time, and Batmania was a thing then. It was everywhere, and it was so cool because we didn't have any of that, right? There were not comic book stuff and superhero stuff everywhere like it is now. And then this came out, and it's like we could step into the light and be seen for the first time. And love this movie so much. And again, it's dark. It does have creepy aspects. I know it's not a horror movie, but I had to acknowledge Batman.
Gotta acknowledge Batman. I love it. And then we have a couple more anniversaries here. June 25th, 1976, we have The Omen. The Omen's a great movie, obviously. It's like the Damien, son of Satan, all that good shit. The original's the best. The remake's
Yeah, and I don't even know how many sequels there are to this. This is another one where there's, I think, like 60 sequels that have varying degrees. But yeah, the original's a classic.
Love it. And then also another classic, in my opinion, we have the 1982, June 25th, The Thing. Oh, man, love The Thing. Obviously, it's got some of the best practical effects, in any horror movie from that era. So good. And even the remake's good, too. Or prequel, whatever it is.
Yeah. One of those is a great movie. Great movie. Those are three great movies right there with the anniversaries.
Like I said, this was a good week. I don't know, like all the birthdays, the movie anniversaries, like wow. But
we're getting to that part. We're getting to that part where it's the summer blockbuster time, right? So.
Oh yeah.
So we might, there might be some big movies on the anniversaries. I know horror movies don't necessarily always get that summer blockbuster, but there are ones out there that do.
Absolutely. But all right, now we're going to move on to a couple of upcoming movie releases. On June 23rd, Shudder is reviewing or putting out another movie. Of course, it's going to be called Quicksand. Quicksand is an American couple on the brink of divorce who find themselves in a fight for survival when they come become trapped in a pit of quicksand while on a hike through the rainforest. This is again a Shudder original releasing on the 23rd, and we are actually reviewing this next episode. Preliminarily, I'm thinking that this is going to be sort of a small scope movie, probably something in similar to like 124 hours or whatever that movie was about the guy who cut his arm off.
Yeah.
So if I had to guess, I'm probably going to say it's going to be pretty close to that. Or Buried with Ryan Reynolds or whatever.
Yeah, or Holy Shit.
Right.
That we watched recently. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's primarily a one set thing, right? I mean, it's got to be this quicksand. But I've heard there's snakes involved and everything else, and this just creeps me the heck out because I was raised during a time when quicksand was foreign and unknown, and it was terrifying because we did not know what it was, and you literally thought it's just something that if you step in it, bam, you're gone, right? You're sinking, you're done. That's it, your history, whatever. So obviously, we know a little more about this stuff now, and whatever. But this is still, it's gonna scare the crap out of me if it's done well, which we'll talk about next episode, and we'll see.
Absolutely. And then the other new release, another streaming release, I love it, June 28th, and Netflix. Sorry, I almost read that completely wrong. We have Run Rabbit Run. Sarah Snook plays a fertility doctor who believes firmly in life and death, but after noticing the strange behavior of her young daughter, she must challenge her own values and confront a ghost from her past. Doesn't give you a lot of details, but I'll probably check it out. It's a streaming horror movie. I usually check them all out.
Yeah, I mean, when it's on a service you already subscribe to, why not? Why not give it a shot and support that? Again, I'm a big proponent of supporting these platforms because they give opportunities to filmmakers who have not hit that upper tier yet and get these big theatrical releases, right? And there are some really good movies that go. It's not it's there used to be the term straight to DVD, right? Or straight to video or whatever. And that oftentimes meant a poor quality movie, right? Because it was just there to try to get a buck. Initially, straight to streaming was kind of the same thing, but that is no longer the case. And straight to streaming movies and series they're winning awards and everything else. It's completely different now in the landscape of movies now.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And there you have it, folks. Those are a couple of new releases. Like Dave said, we are in a brand new world. We are in the new frontier of horror movies. We got movies coming out like crazy on these streaming services. So if you haven't checked them out yet, check them out. We always post about them as well, so check it out on social media. But we're gonna go ahead and pause for a second, and when we come back, we're gonna review the one, the only Cannibal Cabin.
Listen to Their Screams is now a Fangoria collaborator. Get 20% off your order at shop.fangoria.com by using the promo code LISTEN2SCREAMS at checkout. That is listen, the number 2, and screams. Or you can click the link in the show notes. All right, and we are back on Listen to Their Screams, and it is review time. And this episode, we are reviewing Cannibal Cabin, which went straight to video on demand. I think the movie was originally came out. It's a UK movie, I believe. Came out in 2022, but it just now got released in North America straight to video on demand. A group of 20-somethings want to end the summer on a high, and they take the advice from a girl they met at a festival about a secret rave deep in the valleys. When their route is detoured, they have no choice but to venture into the unknown. Once they come across a derelict aqua park, they soon realize what they thought was their salvation turns out to be the heart of the cannibal's lair. It is written by Charlie McDougall and directed by Louisa Warren. And Ike, here's the thing. Before we went to the break and came to the review, you said the one and only Cannibal Cabin. I have to say I hope it is the one and only because I was not a fan of this movie. And here's the thing. I like overall. I still like low budget movies, even if the effects aren't super great. I still like them, right? I like cheese. This movie, the effects weren't great. The acting was okay, right? The acting was okay. The production was okay. It didn't, it didn't look bad or anything like that. Had some great, scenery shots because it was filmed in the UK. But to me, this movie was so boring and it was so predictable. And they tried to throw a twist in the end, but it was a twist that you saw literally like 15 minutes into the movie. I mean, and again, we give the spoiler warning at the top of the show. We talk about it all the time. This is filled with spoilers. I'm totally going to spoil this movie. So if you're concerned about that, you might want to stop now and go watch it, I guess. But early in the movie, right, there's that opening scene with the two guys and the girl, and they're killed and they're whatever, and the one's pregnant. And literally then when it comes to modern time, and there's this group of 20 somethings, and there's the one girl named Faye who is literally kind of the outcast, and she tells them about this festival, and they met her at another festival, and she's all like, oh, I have no friends, I'm on my own, and my family's a bunch of freaks. I'm like, yeah, she was the baby. And she is with the cannibals. I'm like, I felt like they really shouldn't have put the line, my family is a bunch of freaks. That they could have, I think they could have written that line a little better where it wasn't so strong. Again, I don't know whether it would have kept the swerve. Maybe she shouldn't have said anything. But to me, I felt like you knew exactly where this movie was going. And It went there. And if you're trying to put some kind of twist like that in it, and you can see it so early, it's just kind of pointless, and it makes the movie, it makes it a little bit of a chore, because I feel like you're watching it trying to get, then okay, well, let's see when it gets to it, and you're kind of hoping, well, will they do something to make that twist, that turn kind of spectacular? And nah, it wasn't really. I mean, I think she hit the guy with the pickaxe or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, there we are, I was right, okay. And it's like, and I don't know, and the movie had, it had a little blood and a little gore, but it wasn't anything. It wasn't even like you say, oh, the practical effects or the goriness was. Oh, I watched it for that. That part was okay. It wasn't even like that. It was so over the top when you're talking cannibals. I mean, there was a little of it, but it wasn't even like any benchmark. And I do have to say before I turn it over to you, talking about the effects, talking about the baby, the scene where they cut the baby out of the lady. You could not have more clearly saw that was a plastic doll. I mean, it. I know that they didn't have a huge budget, but man, try to shoot it somehow or something to hide. It was literally, you could just tell. I mean, if it was any more apparent, you could have seen the name of the company stamped on the ass of this doll. You could so clearly see it was a plastic doll, and it made me chuckle just so much. And I don't know. I have to say, man, I did not like Cannibal Cabin, and I was hopeful, right? Because I thought, oh, it's a cannibal movie. I knew it was kind of a low budget thing. It didn't have any big release or whatever, but I thought, hey, maybe it'll at least be, it'll have something, right? It'll either have a lot of gore, or it'll be so cheesy that it'll be kind of funny. And one of those movies that I thought, oh, it's really cheesy, but I enjoyed that part of it. And I don't know, it didn't have it. There was no character development. I mean, I didn't, I didn't care who was who. They were all the same to me. And I don't know. I can't really find a redeeming quality to this movie. And I know I've just ripped it apart. What did you think of Cannibal Cabin?
Well, it was a movie. It was about an hour and a half long. I'm just kidding. I think that's about all the good stuff I can say about it. So here's the deal. Cannibal Cabin was not the worst movie I've ever seen, right? I don't think I've found the worst movie quite yet. But here's the deal. Dave pretty much laid it out. There were some pretty staunch issues with this movie. I think probably one of the most pressing issues was their, I guess, lack of money, if I could say that. Because some of the effects were fine. Some of the fight scenes were a little hokey, but it was fine. You know what I mean? It was basically the same shit you'd see from any low budget movie. They do a hard swing and it just kind of looks like it went over their head or whatever, or they swing and punch the guy and it's obviously nowhere even near it, or they start stomping somebody and there's obviously nobody there. It's all that good jazz, stuff that you kind of expect. But like you said, from the very beginning, I knew that Faye, who is the outcast girl, I knew that she was going to come back and bite everybody in the ass. I knew that she wasn't dead. I knew that she was basically part of the family. I knew that she was a cannibal. It was very obvious. It was very clear. You know what I mean? And they do this whole rigmarole to get you to that point. And I'm just like, honestly, had they just come out with it in the beginning, it probably would have been better, in my opinion, if they didn't try and make it this huge twist. Because honestly, I think I would have probably preferred for them just to be like, yep, this person is a part of the group. You know what I mean? They're just kind of there to, snoop on the other people and get them trapped in bullshit. And like you said, the acting wasn't like the worst. Some people were better than others, but holy shit, that baby, man, that is honestly what sticks out to me about this movie. You know what I mean? When you watch a movie, there are things that stick out to you about it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
When I watch movies, I normally, for me, what sticks out is like there's a line in a movie, right? Like in Knock at the Cabin. You know what I mean? All of humanity has been judged. That literally still gives me chills when I see that. You know what I mean? And Terrifier, there are scenes or kills that stick out to me. And this one, it's that goddamn baby. And literally that baby, it looks so plastic. You tell me that nobody on that set had a fucking baby they could use? Just cover that baby in a little fake blood and have it cry or something. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or shit, you buy a more realistic doll. There are literally flesh-like dolls that you can buy that feel that they're like rubber. You know what I mean? And they look like actual flesh and skin. And I think that would have probably been better. But it's just like, bro, like, what the actual fuck? That baby literally looks like a baby you just pulled out a goddamn dollar bin, a Dollar Tree, and you just threw it in some blood. So that's probably my biggest gripe, because first and foremost, I saw that, I laughed. I literally was audibly laughing because I was like, bro, this is ridiculous. But also, I feel like they tried really hard, so I do want to give them credit for that. But like, man, there were so many things that you could have done differently, different ways you could have filmed scenes. And I'm by no means an expert. I'm just some fat dude who does a podcast. So like, take this with a grain of salt. But I just feel like there were better ways to approach this movie, that maybe I'm wrong about. But I don't know. I feel like this movie could have been better even with its low budget. Is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing is, and again, I'm not a filmmaker, so I don't want to besmirch someone who does and took a shot.
Right.
But there are lots of great movies with low budgets, and there are lots of great movies who work around things. And you have to know, as a filmmaker, a way to make the movie, to film the movie, to angle the shots, to do whatever, to hide the flaws, to hide the shortcomings. I feel like we keep going back to the baby thing. You know what? If that's what you've got and that's what you can work with, and that's the best you can do, just don't show the baby, right? Show them cutting her open, switch to an angle, or whatever, do something, have some baby crying noise so that people, you could still parlay the exact same message without showing it. And you have to, know how to hide the weaknesses somewhat. And I just feel like they thought they had to have this twist in this movie, but they made, there was too obvious. It was too easy to figure out. I don't, why not? Because supposedly she met one of these girls at the festival, right? And that's who hooked her up with the group and blah, blah, blah. About, she lied to him and told him there was another festival to lead them do this.
Right.
Why not just tweak that a little bit and say that she, knew one of the girls, had met one of the girls or whatever else, and they did this, and they lay it out where you knew she was, part of the cannibal, but then had the twist in the end be that the girl from the group had actually joined and was on the side with her, right? She had twisted her, or so. I don't know if you want to have it, or maybe just don't have the twist. Like you said, maybe just from the get go. I mean, and again, all it had to be was, it could be a look, a very an evil little smirk or something where you say, oh yeah,
Right.
she's part of it. And then when it gets to the point, I don't know, don't try to film it where you're trying to make it look dramatic, like, aha, look what I've done, when you've already you've buried the lead. and you've already kind of put that out there. So again, I'm not a filmmaker. So I understand it's not, maybe it's not so easy. And again, I know everybody starts somewhere. And like we've said millions of times, great filmmakers have really shitty movies, and you learn and you grow. And when you have more money, it is easier to do those things.
Yeah.
But I'm I very I'm very good at watching a movie, even a bad movie, and finding something redeemable about it in my eyes, where I can say, "Oh, I didn't like that movie. I didn't think it was a good movie, but there was this." Whether it just be a moment, a scene, an actor's performance, something, just something about it, and it could just be something small. I can't find anything in this movie where I can sit there and say, there was that was memorable to me. That was kind of cool. That was it. It just, the whole movie was flat. It was kind of boring, and they tried to have this twist, and they killed the twist. So what they tried to do to add something to it, it didn't work. And then again, sometimes you could take a bad movie like that, and you can throw a bunch of fake blood and some good practical effects and some creative kills, and you could say, well, the movie was bad, the dialogue was bad, they ruined the twist, but man, we saw some gore and it was fun and it was kind of, and you didn't really have that here. I mean, even when they were cutting into, they didn't show a lot, and it just, I know there was a limited budget, but if you're making a cannibal movie and this is what you're going with, you got to choose your lane and try to go with it. If you're not going to show gore or whatever else, then it's got to have more suspense, more thrills. I mean, this movie didn't even have jump scares for me, right? There wasn't even any of that, and I feel like you've got to pick something and have something to make up for it. And I don't feel like it had it. I mean, I hate to be that negative about a movie, but I just didn't enjoy it, and I didn't find anything redeemable. And I mean, even when we watched Thanksgiving, and that was a horrible movie. But I still chuckle in my head every time I hear the line, gobble gobble, motherfucker. Again, there was that, right? Where, well, at least I laughed at that line. And and even in that movie though, it's like they were very tongue in cheek, and they knew, hey, we're making a bad movie. We know we're making a bad movie, so we're going to lean into that. Well, this didn't have didn't have that. So, I don't know. I guess I was disappointed in this. I was hopeful. Again, I wasn't hoping that it was a spectacular, award-winning type movie,
Right.
but I was just hoping for an hour and a half of, hey, whatever. It was fun, and it just wasn't fun for me. So
Yeah.
it is what
Absolutely.
it is. So
No.
so
Yeah.
you want to
Go
add
ahead.
anything else before we rate it?
No, I was just gonna add just one small thing, but you said something and it kind of rolled some, got my brain functioning a little bit. But you kind of said, if you would have done this, you would have done this. And like you said, I just wanted to add myself, definitely not criticizing the filmmakers, but I feel like there should have been somebody to like sit there and be like, hey, maybe we should do it this way. I don't know. I feel like there should have been just like it was almost close to being redeemable. And I just feel like that little push that they needed, I feel like there could have been a number of things, the baby, more better effects, more money, who knows. But like you said, I feel like it was almost close to being redeemable, but as it is, it's not. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, I mean, it just needed something to hang its hat on, right?
Yeah.
Something, and it didn't have it. Or it didn't have. There's nothing where you can hang it up and look at it and say, well, there's at least that part. And it just, there's no part. There's no, the writing wasn't good. The dialogue wasn't good. The kills and gores were blah. The twist fell flat because they revealed it. I mean, there's nothing where you can say, well, there's all this shit, but there's that one pearl in it. I just,
Right.
I didn't find that. So let's rate this. I will go first, Ike, because I'm breaking new ground here. Because I believe the first time, if I'm thinking right, for the first time, I am giving Cannibal Cabin a 1 scream out of 5. I did not like this movie. I don't want to be the old man, the negative aspect. We did have some listeners that said, hey, we like it when you or the wives are on and you don't sugarcoat. You just you say your opinions, right? So I'm saying my opinion here. While I give props to them for swinging and for going for it and trying to make something, me as a viewer, I feel like it was a big swing and a miss. And like I said, I cannot find a redeemable quality about it. But unfortunately, all apologies to the creators. I'm giving Cannibal Cabin a 1 scream out of 5.
You know, I don't think that I can give it a 1 scream. I'll be honest. I don't think I can give it 1 scream because I just don't think that this is quite to the level of there's nothing about this that I liked. There were a lot of things that I disliked, but I don't think I can quite give it a 1 scream. I think that I'm personally going to give it 1.5 screams out of 5. The only reason I did that is because I don't think that this is the worst movie I've seen yet, and I think the worst movie that I've seen will deserve a 1.
I'll be curious if we ever come across that movie.
We'll see. There's got to be something out there that is so irredeemable and so horrible that we review that gets a 1. I'm sure something at some point.
I feel like we need to take to social media and ask people, what is the worst horror movie you've ever seen? And then at some point when we have a whole, we need to pick one of those movies and just go for it and see what we think.
You know what? Yes.
I mean, every time we have a hole and we try to think, oh, let's do something classic, an older movie or whatever, I'm always trying like, oh, let's pick a classic. Let's pick something we like, something that stands out. Maybe at some point in time, we need to go to the other end of the spectrum and see what we think of a bad movie. So, okay. So even at that, even with the 1.5, I think that is your lowest rating you've given a movie yet too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 1.5 is 100% the lowest rating that I've given to a movie. Like I said, I can't quite stoop to a 1 just yet, but it's close.
I believe Thanksgiving is the only movie that I've ever considered going this low with, but I'm pretty sure we gave it a 2, and I think that was only because at least I chuckled at the comedy. So that bumped it to a 2 for me at that time. So yeah, there you have it. A cumulative 1.2 or 1.25 screams out of 5 for us for Cannibal Cabin. So go out and watch it yourself and give us feedback on social media and tell us what you think. Do you agree that you thought this movie was that bad, or did you enjoy it? And if you did, mad props to you. I'm glad. I really am. Even a movie I don't like, I'm hoping there are people that like it and enjoy it because it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't bother me at all if everybody in the world thinks it's the best thing since sliced bread, and I hated it. Doesn't matter to me. Makes no difference. So go watch it for yourself. See what you think and give us feedback on social media and let us know what did you think of Cannibal Cabin and what would you rate it out of 5 screams. And let's see where we stand. Let's see if you're in agreement with us, if you think we have valid points, or whether we're just two full of shit dudes who are talking into microphones. Because that is a very it could be a reasonable assessment of us. Who knows? But we're two dudes who like horror movies, have watched a lot of horror movies, and we have fun watching horror movies. And it is what it is, right? We got to call a dud when it happens, right? Because there are movies that are duds. And so in our opinions, that's what we think of Cannibal Cabin.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we will close the book on the long pig, on the eating of human flesh. We've ranked our top. We've done our top 3. We've reviewed Cannibal Cabin. For the moment, let's put we'll put the cannibalism away. And next episode, we're diving into a horror of nature, as we are going to be reviewing the movie Quicksand, which will be available June 23rd on Shudder. So I highly urge all of our listeners that when this comes out, to go and watch it yourself, so that when we give our review, you can think along with us, right? And you know what we're talking about when we discuss the movie. So make sure you subscribe on whatever podcast platform you prefer and you listen to us. Make sure you subscribe to us and share us. Give us a rating and review, because that helps us in those algorithms. It helps us come up as suggested listens for people who listen to similar podcasts. And make sure you follow us on social media. You heard the ad earlier. We're on all kinds of platforms. Surely we're on one that you use and enjoy. So find us there or find us on them all. But interact with us and give us feedback. We do like activity on social media. So, Ike, before we close the door on the cannibalism, before we slip out the back of the Cannibal Cabin and lock it behind us and throw away the key, do you have anything you want to add to this episode?
The volcano menu is coming back at Taco Bell in a week, so I'm pretty excited about that. I didn't really have anything to say about Cannibal Cabin, but I was thinking about Taco Bell.
Well, because you were discussing earlier chugging Pepto straight out of a bottle. There you go. Full circle. Taco Bell alone, but then you put volcano on top. I like the volcano stuff, but still, it'll light you up. And it's one of those weird things that sometimes it's like, oh, I crave it. It's so good. I eat it, but then later I regret it. But then it's like, whatever. You rinse and repeat, because in a couple of weeks, I'm craving it again.
I'll do it again. That's right.
I'm glutton for punishment sometimes, but so there you have it. Ike says volcano menu's coming. Go get yourself some spicy shit, and that's just the way it is. And keep the bottle of Pepto handy. They make that shit in every way, pills, whatever you like. They've got it now to help you with your digestive needs.
They really do. They got the pills, they got the edible things, they got the freaking the chewable things, they got the liquid. Man,
come a long way for digestive malfunctions. I feel like it's appropriate on a podcast where we've talked cannibalism that we talk about digestive issues at the end of the movie. So, because I can only imagine, what does that do for the digestive? Whew, I hate to know. But anyway, there you have it.
I'm sure it's bad for you. I'm sure it is. Sorry, go ahead.
No matter what, when you're trying a new food, there's an adjustment period. So at the very least, you're gonna have a period there where it's gonna be, your clock in your calendar is gonna be way off, and the schedule, it's just gonna be weird. So there you have it. We're probably the only podcast that discuss cannibalism. And our big question is, what does it do for your digestive system? So,
amen.
Yeah. So if any of our listeners are a doctor and have an educated theory on this, lay it on us. We talked about social media, so let's hear it. I want to know what you think. So, but anyway, like we said, next episode we'll be discussing quicksand, and we'll be back with all of our fun and games and news and reviews and birthdays and anniversaries, all the things that you've come to expect from Listen to Their Screams. But until then, wherever you go and whatever you do and whatever you eat, be good, be safe, and have many pleasant nightmares.